Mina lived on the quiet edge of a small town where the road turned to dust and the fields stretched wide under the open sky. Her house was a simple one made of old bricks and patched wood, with a roof that sometimes leaked when the rain came hard. She did not complain because there was no time for that. Every morning she woke before the sun, washed her face with cold water, and tied her hair back with a plain ribbon. Then she checked on her mother, who had been weak for many months. Her mother always tried to smile, even when her breath sounded tired. Mina would warm some water, make a small meal, and leave it near her mother's bed before heading out for work. Mina worked at the town stables, not because it was easy, but because it was the only job that would take her without asking too many questions. The stable owner, an older man named Haroon, had a serious face but a fair heart. He paid Mina little, yet he paid on time. Mina swept the floor, carried hay, cleaned buckets, and brushed the calmer horses that came from farms nearby. She learned to move quietly and to watch carefully. Horses, she noticed, did not like sudden fear. They could feel it like a storm in the air. Mina did not have much strength, but she had patience, and that helped her more than she expected. The town had two sides that rarely met. One side was full of workers, shopkeepers, and families who lived simply and counted every coin. The other side belonged to the rich, who lived in large houses beyond the fields, where high walls and tall gates kept the world out. The rich people visited town for fun, not for need. They came with clean clothes and loud voices, and they treated the fields like a playground. They would ride fast, laugh at small mistakes, and speak as if everyone was there to entertain them. On one bright afternoon, a group of rich visitors arrived at the stables in shining vehicles that looked too new for the dusty road. Mina was outside, lifting a heavy sack of feed, when she heard the sound of footsteps and quick laughter. She glanced up and saw them walking in like they owned the place. There were 4 young men and 2 young women, all wearing expensive shoes that sank a little into the soft ground near the pens. One of the young men pointed toward Mina and smirked, as if her simple clothes were a joke. Haroon stepped forward, wiping his hands on a cloth. He greeted them politely and asked what they wanted. The tallest young man, named Cameron, leaned his elbow on the wooden rail and looked around with bored eyes. He said they wanted to ride and they wanted something exciting. Haroon offered the trained horses, the ones used for visitors, but Cameron shook his head and laughed. He said he did not come for a slow ride. He wanted the wild one. Everyone at the stable knew which horse he meant. In the far pen, behind a thicker fence, stood a strong horse with a dark coat and sharp eyes. People called it Storm, not because it was evil, but because it was unpredictable. The horse had been brought in after being found running free in the open lands far from town. It was powerful and fast, and it did not trust humans easily. Haroon had tried to train it slowly, but Storm would only allow brief moments of closeness before it pulled away again. Most riders avoided that pen, and Haroon warned visitors to do the same. Haroon told Cameron that the wild horse was not for riding. Cameron rolled his eyes and said the stable was boring. Another young man laughed and said it was funny how everyone acted scared of an animal. One of the young women, named Nita, looked toward Storm with interest, but her smile was not kind. She said a wild horse would be a perfect show. The group began to speak louder, drawing the attention of a few workers and townspeople nearby. Mina tried to focus on her work, but she could feel trouble building like heat. She placed the sack down, dusted her hands, and stepped to the side. She did not want to be noticed. She had seen rich visitors cause problems before, and she had learned that the safest place was far away. But Cameron's eyes followed movement, and Mina's quiet step caught his attention. He pointed at her and asked who she was. Haroon answered quickly, saying she was a worker and she had tasks to finish. Cameron walked closer, looking Mina up and down as if she were an object on a shelf. He asked if she could ride. Mina swallowed and said she did not ride, she only worked. Cameron grinned, as if her answer amused him even more. He said that made it better. He said a person who did not ride would make the wild horse more interesting. Haroon's face tightened. He told Cameron to stop, and he tried to guide them back toward the trained horses. But the group was no longer listening. They began teasing, saying Haroon was scared and the stable was weak. They spoke about how money should get them what they wanted. Their laughter grew sharper, and it drew more eyes from outside the stables. A few boys who hung around the fields walked closer, curious to see what was happening. Mina felt her stomach twist. She looked at Haroon, hoping he would end this quickly, but she could see he was careful. He did not want to anger them because rich people could bring problems that lasted a long time. They could complain to the town officers, and they could create trouble for the stable. Mina understood that Haroon was trying to protect his work and his workers, but the rich visitors were pushing harder, enjoying the power they felt. Cameron stepped closer to Mina again and said she should ride Storm just once. He spoke as if it was a game, a simple thing like throwing a stone or kicking a ball. Mina shook her head and said no. Her voice was quiet but clear. Cameron's smile turned colder. He asked if she thought she was too good to do it. Nita laughed and said the poor girl was scared. Another young man said Mina probably could not even climb the fence without falling. Mina's cheeks burned, not from pride, but from the feeling of being trapped. She looked around and noticed how many people were watching now. Some faces were worried. Some were curious. No one stepped forward. Mina understood why. In towns like this, people had learned to avoid the anger of the rich, even when the rich were wrong. Mina felt a deep heaviness in her chest, the same heaviness she felt when she counted money at night and knew it was not enough for medicine, not enough for food, not enough for peace. Haroon tried one last time. He said the horse was not safe and he would not allow it. Cameron laughed and said Haroon did not have the right to refuse. He tossed a few bills in the air like they were nothing. The bills fluttered down near Mina's feet. Cameron said money could solve fear. He said if Mina rode the horse, she could take it all. Mina stared at the bills on the ground. For a second, her mind showed her mother lying in bed, her mother's thin hands, her mother's gentle smile that tried to hide pain. Mina wanted to walk away. She wanted to disappear into the stable and never look back. But she also knew what those bills could mean. They could mean warm soup for a week. They could mean the doctor visiting again. They could mean medicine that might help her mother sleep without waking in discomfort. Mina took a slow breath. She did not pick up the money. She did not speak right away. Instead she turned her head toward the far pen where Storm stood. The horse watched everything with sharp focus, ears shifting, body still but ready. Mina felt something strange then, something she had never felt when looking at Storm. It was not fear alone. It was a quiet understanding, as if the horse and the girl were both being treated like toys for someone else's pleasure. Cameron clapped his hands once, loud and demanding, and said the show should begin. Haroon stepped forward quickly, trying to stop it, but the group moved toward the pen. Mina's heart beat hard in her chest. She knew this moment would change something, one way or another. She looked at the gate latch, then at Storm's eyes, and she made a choice she did not fully understand yet, a choice shaped by need, by pride, and by a calm that surprised even her. She walked toward the pen. The crowd leaned in. The wind shifted across the field. Storm lifted its head higher, watching her approach as if the next few seconds would decide the future for both of them. The moment Mina stepped closer to the pen, the air around the stables felt heavy. The noise of laughter faded into low murmurs as everyone sensed that this was no longer a joke. Storm stood tall, muscles tight under its dark coat, eyes alert and shining. The horse stamped the ground once, sending a small cloud of dust into the air. Some people took a step back, but the rich visitors leaned forward, eager for what they believed would be an exciting scene. Haroon moved quickly and stood near Mina. He spoke softly, telling her she did not have to do this. His voice carried worry and regret. Mina looked at him and gave a small nod. She thanked him, but her eyes stayed fixed on Storm. She knew if she turned back now, the rich people would laugh louder, and the shame would follow her for a long time. She also knew that the money they had thrown meant more than pride. It meant comfort for her mother. That thought stayed in her mind as she placed her hand on the wooden fence. Storm shifted its weight and snorted. The sound was sharp, warning anyone who came too close. Mina did not rush. She remembered how the calmer horses reacted when she moved slowly. She remembered how fear made animals tense. She closed her eyes for a brief moment and breathed in deeply. When she opened them, she stepped inside the pen. A quiet gasp spread through the crowd. No one expected her to enter so calmly. The rich visitors whispered among themselves, amused but also surprised. Cameron crossed his arms and smiled as if the result was already decided. He spoke loudly, telling Mina to hurry before the horse lost patience. Mina did not respond. She focused on her steps and the space between her and Storm. Storm moved in a wide circle, keeping distance. Its tail flicked, and its ears turned in different directions, listening to every sound. Mina stopped walking and stood still. She kept her hands low and open. She did not stare into the horse's eyes, but she did not look away either. She let her presence settle, the way she had learned while brushing nervous horses. The pen felt smaller with each breath she took. The horse suddenly charged forward a short distance, stopping just a few steps away from Mina. Several people shouted in fear. Haroon raised his arm, ready to run in if needed. Mina felt her heart race, but she did not scream or step back. She stayed where she was, her feet firm against the ground. Storm snorted again and shook its head, as if testing her. Minutes passed that felt much longer. The rich visitors began to grow impatient. One of them laughed and said nothing was happening. Another suggested someone should push Mina closer. Cameron raised his hand as if to signal something, but Haroon stepped in front of him and told him to stay back. The tension between them was thick, but no one moved. Slowly, Storm stopped circling. The horse lowered its head slightly and took a step forward. The movement was careful, not wild. Mina noticed the change and felt a small sense of relief. She spoke softly, not with words meant to command, but with a tone that carried calm. Her voice was low and steady, almost like a song without a tune. Storm listened, its breathing slowing as it drew closer. When the horse stood near her, Mina raised her hand gently. Her fingers trembled, but she did not pull away. Storm leaned its head forward, sniffing her hand. The contact was brief, but it was real. A quiet sound of surprise moved through the crowd. No one laughed now. The rich visitors watched with wide eyes, unsure of what to say. Mina touched the horse's neck, her hand light and respectful. Storm did not flinch. Its muscles remained tense, but it did not move away. Mina walked slowly along its side, keeping her body close but not pressing. She knew the next step would be the hardest. Riding the horse was not just about climbing on. It was about trust, and trust could break in a moment. Haroon brought a simple saddle and placed it carefully over the fence. He did not rush. He watched Storm closely, ready to pull back if the horse reacted badly. Mina took the saddle and showed it to the horse first, letting it see and smell it. Storm shifted again, but it did not panic. The horse's eyes stayed on Mina. The rich visitors were silent now. The excitement they expected had turned into something else, something they did not understand. Cameron's smile faded as he realized this was no longer under his control. He wanted chaos, not patience. He wanted laughter, not silence. Mina placed the saddle gently and stepped back. Storm flicked its tail but remained still. The crowd held its breath. Mina moved to the side of the horse and placed her foot in the stirrup. Her hands shook as she held the saddle. For a moment, fear rose up like a wave, threatening to pull her under. She thought of her mother again, of the long nights and quiet prayers. That thought gave her strength. She lifted herself and climbed onto Storm's back. The horse reacted at once. Storm jumped forward, powerful and fast. Dust flew as hooves struck the ground. People shouted in shock. Haroon called out her name, his voice full of fear. The rich visitors stepped back quickly, some laughing, others startled. Storm ran across the pen and burst through the open gate, heading toward the wide field beyond the stables. The fence shook as the horse passed. Mina held on as best she could, her body moving with the horse's strong rhythm. The wind rushed past her face, and the ground blurred beneath them. Fear filled her chest, but she remembered not to fight too hard. She leaned forward, holding gently, letting the horse lead. Behind them, the stables were left in chaos. People ran to the fence, watching as Storm raced farther away. The rich visitors stood frozen, their confidence gone. What they had started as a cruel game had turned into something dangerous and real. Out in the open field, Storm slowed for a moment, then sped up again. The horse tested its strength, tossing its head, trying to shake the rider. Mina's arms burned, and her legs trembled, but she stayed focused. She spoke softly again, her voice carried away by the wind, but her calm remained. As the field stretched wide and empty around them, something began to change. Storm's breathing, once sharp and fast, started to steady. Its steps became more even. Mina felt it through the horse's movement. The fear that had driven the run began to ease, replaced by awareness. Far behind them, the stables grew smaller. The crowd was now only a distant blur. Mina and Storm were alone in the open land, facing a moment that no one else could control or predict. Whatever happened next would belong only to them, and the outcome would shock everyone who had believed this story would end in laughter. The open field stretched far in every direction, covered in tall grass that moved like waves under the sky. Storm ran with power, its hooves striking the earth in a steady rhythm. Mina felt every movement through her body. Her arms were tight, her legs sore, but her mind slowly shifted from fear to focus. She understood that fighting the horse would only make things worse. She loosened her grip just enough to move with Storm instead of against it. The wind rushed past her ears, carrying the smell of soil and grass. Mina leaned forward slightly, lowering her body to stay balanced. She spoke again in a low voice. Her words were simple and calm. She did not shout. She did not cry. She spoke the way she did when her mother woke in pain at night. That same gentle tone carried care and patience. Storm tossed its head and tried to speed up, but the field was wide and quiet, without fences or shouting voices. There was no crowd here. No laughter. No pressure. The horse began to sense the difference. Its steps slowly became less sharp. The run turned into a strong but steady pace. Mina noticed the change and adjusted with it. She stayed alert but did not tense. Minutes passed as horse and rider moved together. Mina's fear did not vanish, but it settled into something manageable. She felt Storm's breathing through its back. At first it was heavy and uneven. Then it slowly became deeper and more controlled. The horse flicked its ears backward once, listening. Mina felt a strange connection grow, like a quiet agreement forming without words. Storm slowed to a fast walk, and then stopped near a group of old trees at the edge of the field. The shade there was cool and still. Mina did not move right away. She waited, letting the horse settle fully. Storm lowered its head and breathed deeply. Its body no longer shook with tension. The wild energy that once drove it now rested beneath calm strength. Mina carefully slid down from Storm's back. Her legs nearly gave way when her feet touched the ground, but she steadied herself by holding the horse's neck. Storm did not pull away. It stood quietly, allowing her touch. Mina rested her forehead gently against its shoulder for a moment, closing her eyes. Relief washed over her like warm water. For the first time since entering the pen, Mina allowed herself to feel proud. Not a loud pride, but a quiet one that warmed her chest. She had not proven anything to the rich visitors. She had proven something to herself. She opened her eyes and stroked Storm's neck slowly. The horse remained still, calm and accepting. In the distance, movement caught Mina's attention. Several people were running across the field toward her. Haroon was among them, his pace fast despite his age. Behind him followed a few townspeople who had gathered courage to come after her. Farther back, the rich visitors walked more slowly, their faces no longer full of confidence. As they drew closer, Haroon shouted her name. His voice carried relief and disbelief. Mina lifted her hand to show she was safe. When Haroun reached her, he stopped and bent forward slightly, catching his breath. He looked from Mina to Storm and shook his head in wonder. He asked if she was hurt. Mina smiled gently and said she was fine. The townspeople gathered around, keeping a respectful distance from the horse. They watched Storm with cautious eyes, expecting it to react. But Storm stood quietly beside Mina, its head low and relaxed. A murmur of surprise moved through the group. Some people whispered that they had never seen the wild horse behave this way. The rich visitors finally arrived. Cameron stood still, staring at the scene in front of him. His face showed confusion and disbelief. Nita looked away, clearly uncomfortable. The others shifted their weight, unsure of what to say. The excitement they had hoped for was gone. In its place stood a calm moment that reflected their poor choice. Haroun stepped forward and spoke firmly. He said what they had done was wrong. He said Mina could have been badly hurt. His voice was steady, and for once, no one interrupted him. The rich visitors did not argue. They did not laugh. They listened in silence, their confidence broken by what they had witnessed. Mina did not look at them with anger. She simply stood beside Storm, her hand resting on its neck. She felt tired, but also clear in her thoughts. She realized something important. The rich visitors had seen her as weak because of her clothes and work. They believed fear lived only in those with less power. But fear, she now understood, lived in everyone. Storm had been afraid too, and kindness had changed that. Haroun asked Mina how she had done it. Mina thought for a moment before answering. She said she did not try to control the horse. She tried to understand it. She said Storm was not wild because it was bad. It was wild because it had never been treated with patience. Haroun nodded slowly, as if learning something new himself. One of the townspeople stepped forward and offered to help lead Storm back. Mina took the rope and held it gently. Storm followed her without resistance. Each step felt unreal to those watching. The horse that once threw riders and frightened workers now walked calmly beside a poor girl from the edge of town. As they returned toward the stables, the rich visitors stayed behind. No one invited them to follow. They stood alone in the field, quiet and humbled. Cameron watched Mina walk away, his face pale and thoughtful. He realized that the power he believed he had meant nothing in that moment. Back at the stables, news spread quickly. More people gathered, whispering and pointing, but with respect this time. Mina returned Storm to the pen, securing the gate carefully. Storm did not resist. It stood near the fence, watching Mina as she stepped away. For the first time, the horse did not feel like a danger. It felt like a symbol of something deeper. Mina felt her body ache as the rush faded. Haroun offered her water and told her to rest. She thanked him and sat down on a wooden bench. As she drank, she thought about her mother, waiting at home. She knew this day would be remembered, not because of fear or laughter, but because something unexpected had changed. What began as cruelty had revealed strength. What was meant to shame had inspired respect. And though Mina did not yet know it, this moment would soon bring consequences that would reach far beyond the stables and touch every life involved. The sun moved lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the stables. Mina sat quietly on the wooden bench, her hands resting on her knees. Her body felt tired, but her mind stayed awake. People kept their distance, watching her with new eyes. Some whispered her name with respect. Others looked at Storm, still calm in its pen, as if seeing the horse for the first time. Haroun spoke with the townspeople, explaining what had happened. His voice carried pride mixed with concern. He told them Mina had shown courage and care, not force. The workers nodded, many of them remembering how Storm had frightened even the strongest men before. They looked at Mina with gratitude, knowing she had changed something important. The rich visitors did not leave right away. Cameron stood near his group, silent and tense. He watched Mina from afar. The laughter that once came easily to him was gone. He felt exposed, as if everyone could see the truth he tried to hide. He had wanted control and excitement. Instead he had watched patience defeat pride. Nita broke the silence among the rich visitors. She said quietly that they should go. Her voice lacked confidence. Cameron did not answer at first. He stared at the ground, then looked up and walked toward Haroon. The others followed slowly, unsure of what would happen next. When Cameron reached Haroon, he spoke with a lower voice than before. He said he had not expected things to turn out this way. He tried to sound calm, but his words felt heavy. Haroon listened without interrupting. He crossed his arms and waited. The townspeople watched closely, sensing something important was about to be said. Cameron cleared his throat and said the situation had gone too far. He admitted the joke was wrong. The word apology did not come easily to him, but he managed to say it. He said he was sorry for putting Mina in danger. His eyes shifted briefly toward Mina, then away again. The crowd grew quiet. No one expected those words. Haroon nodded once and said the apology mattered, but actions mattered more. He said Mina was not an object for entertainment. She was a person who worked hard and deserved respect. Cameron did not argue. He nodded slowly, accepting the truth he could no longer avoid. Mina stood up and walked closer, her steps calm. She did not feel anger. She felt clarity. She told Cameron that fear could teach people something if they listened to it. She said Storm had been afraid, just like she had. Kindness had helped both of them. Her voice was steady and simple. The words reached deeper than shouting ever could. Cameron looked at her then. For the first time, he truly saw her. Not as a poor worker or a challenge, but as someone strong in a way he did not understand before. He lowered his head slightly and thanked her. It was not loud or dramatic, but it was real. The rich visitors left the stables soon after. Their vehicles disappeared down the dusty road, quieter than when they arrived. The town seemed to breathe again. People returned to their work, but the mood had changed. Something important had shifted. As evening came closer, Haroon asked Mina to stay a moment longer. He led her to his small office near the stables. He sat down and gestured for her to do the same. He said what she had done would not be forgotten. He said Storm needed someone like her. Someone patient. Someone who listened. Haroon offered Mina a new role at the stables. He said she could help train Storm slowly, without force. He promised fair pay and regular hours. Mina felt her eyes fill with quiet emotion. She thanked him and accepted. This chance meant more than money. It meant trust. Before leaving, Mina visited Storm once more. The horse stood near the fence, ears relaxed. Mina placed her hand on its neck, and Storm leaned slightly into her touch. The connection felt peaceful. She whispered thanks, not expecting the horse to understand the words, but knowing it felt the meaning. Mina walked home as the sky turned orange and gold. Her steps felt lighter despite her tired body. When she reached her house, she found her mother resting but awake. Mina sat beside her and shared what had happened. Her mother listened quietly, then smiled with pride. She said courage guided by kindness always found its way. That night, Mina slept deeply for the first time in many days. The next morning brought new energy. Word of the event had spread through the town. People greeted Mina warmly as she walked back to the stables. Some thanked her. Others simply smiled. Storm's training began slowly. Mina spent time near the pen, speaking softly, offering calm presence. Storm responded with trust, step by step. The workers noticed the change. The horse that once frightened everyone now stood as a reminder of patience and care. Days later, a message arrived from one of the rich families. They offered support for the stables and repairs for the old fences. Haroon accepted with caution. He knew the offer came from reflection, not pride. The town benefited, but the lesson remained clear. Mina continued her work quietly. She did not seek praise. She focused on her mother, her job, and the steady bond she built with Storm. She understood that true strength did not shout. It stood firm and calm, even when the world tried to push it down. The day that began with cruelty ended with change. The field where Storm had run free became a place of learning. And Mina, once overlooked, became a symbol of how kindness could turn fear into trust and silence into respect. A full week passed after the day Storm ran into the open field, and the town still talked about it as if it had happened only yesterday. People repeated the moment Mina climbed on the wild horse, and they described the silence that followed when she returned safe. Some told the story in the market, some told it at the tea stalls, and even children acted it out in the dusty lanes. Yet Mina herself did not speak about it much. She carried the memory quietly, like a small light she kept inside. Every morning Mina returned to the stables with the same simple routine. She arrived early, before most workers, and began with calm tasks. She swept the ground, checked water buckets, and arranged hay. Then she went to Storm's pen. She did not rush toward the horse. She stood at a distance first, letting Storm see her and recognize her presence. She spoke softly, using the same gentle tone each day. Storm did not always come close right away, but it no longer looked ready to fight. The horse watched her with curiosity instead of fear. Haroon kept his promise and paid Mina better than before. The extra money helped her buy fresh food and medicine for her mother. Mina's mother started to look slightly stronger. Her face held more color, and she could sit up longer without needing to rest right away. Mina noticed these small improvements and felt hope grow. It was not loud hope that made big promises. It was quiet hope that appeared in tiny changes. The stables also changed. Workers who once avoided Storm now watched from a safe distance, learning from Mina's patience. Some asked her questions, and she answered in simple words. She told them that animals listened to feelings more than to shouting. She explained that fear could spread, but calm could spread too. When workers became impatient, Mina reminded them that trust did not arrive in one day. Trust arrived like sunrise, slowly and steadily. One afternoon Haroon called Mina to his office. His face looked serious, but his eyes showed something different, something like cautious excitement. He told Mina that a visitor was coming, someone important from the nearby city. This visitor had heard about Storm and wanted to see the horse with his own eyes. Haroon said the stable could gain support from this meeting, and that could help everyone. But he also warned Mina that rich people sometimes came with hidden pride. Mina nodded and said she understood. When the visitor arrived, the atmosphere at the stable shifted again. This was not the same group of young rich people who had laughed before. This time a middle-aged man stepped out of a car with a calm manner. His name was Salim. He wore clean clothes, but his voice did not sound sharp. He greeted Haroon politely and listened closely as Haroon explained the stable's situation. Salim's attention soon turned to Mina. He looked at her with respect, not with mockery. He asked her if the story he heard was true. Mina did not exaggerate. She simply said she rode Storm because she had no other choice, and she stayed calm because panic would have made it worse. Salim nodded and said that kind of calm was rare. He asked if she could show him how Storm behaved now. Haroon looked nervous, but Mina agreed. Mina walked toward Storm's pen slowly. The horse stood near the back at first, watching. Mina stopped and spoke softly. She waited. Storm took a few steps forward, then paused. Mina did not pull or wave her hands. She stayed still and patient. After a moment Storm came closer, its head lower than before. People nearby whispered in surprise. Salim watched quietly, his face thoughtful. Mina opened the gate carefully and stepped inside. Storm followed her movement, staying calm. Mina placed her hand on the horse's neck. Storm did not flinch. The bond looked simple, but those who understood horses knew it was not simple at all. This was not a trick. This was trust. Salim took a deep breath and said he had never seen a wild horse respond like that. He asked Mina if she had learned horse training somewhere. Mina said she learned by watching and by being patient. Salim smiled slightly. He said patience was stronger than most people believed. After watching for a while, Salim spoke with Haroun privately. The workers could not hear everything, but they saw Haroun's face change from worry to surprise. When the two men finished, Haroun called everyone together. He announced that Salim wanted to support the stables. Salim offered funds to repair fences, improve the pens, and buy better supplies. He said the stable served the town and deserved care. The workers reacted with relief and excitement. For them it meant safer work and better chances. Then Salim did something that shocked the town even more. He turned to Mina and offered her a place in a training program in the city, a real chance to learn proper animal care and stable management. He said she had natural skill and a calm spirit. He said if she wanted, he could arrange it. The crowd fell silent, surprised by the size of the offer. Mina felt her heart beat hard. This was bigger than money. This was a doorway to a new life. Mina did not answer quickly. Her first thought was her mother. She could not leave her alone. She told Salim she could not go far while her mother was weak. Salim listened and nodded. He said he respected that. Then he offered a different plan. He said the training could be arranged locally, with monthly visits from city trainers, so Mina could learn without leaving home. He also offered help for Mina's mother's medical care. The offer was given in a calm way, without showing power. It felt like true support. Mina's eyes filled with emotion. She lowered her head and thanked him. Haroun looked at Mina with pride. The workers smiled and some even clapped softly. The town had never seen a poor stable worker receive such respect. Later that day, as the sun began to set, Mina walked home with a new weight on her shoulders, but it was not a heavy weight. It was the weight of possibility. She entered her house and found her mother awake. Mina sat beside her and explained everything. Her mother listened carefully, then held Mina's hand and smiled. She said that kindness always returned in a form people did not expect. She told Mina to accept the learning, because education and skill could protect her in the future. In the days that followed, life in the town slowly changed. The stables improved. The fences became stronger. The pens became safer. The workers felt proud of their workplace. Mina trained Storm with patience, and Storm became calmer each day. Soon the horse allowed other workers to stand nearby without fear. Mina watched this progress with quiet happiness. She knew Storm's change was not magic. It was time and care. The rich young visitors did not return for a while, but one day Cameron came alone. His face looked different now. He walked toward Haroun and Mina with less pride and more honesty. He did not bring friends or laughter. He brought a simple envelope. Inside was money for the stable and a note that said he wanted to make things right. Mina looked at him and nodded. She did not punish him with harsh words. She understood that change could happen, even in those who once acted cruel. The story that began as humiliation ended as transformation. A poor girl who was pushed into danger became the reason a whole town gained hope. A wild horse that feared humans became a symbol of trust. The rich who came to laugh learned a lesson they could not buy. And Mina, with her simple clothes and calm heart, proved that real strength did not come from power.